everyone. Welcome to Kernels. I'm Angie Manfredi. I'm the Youth Services Consultant for the State Library of Iowa, and our guest today is Rachel Button. She is the Children's and Young Adult Librarian at Decorah Public Library right here in Iowa. So Kernels is an ongoing series of short videos from the State Library of Iowa. Each installment is a small pop of professional development that gets right to the core of a library program, service, or library methodology applied in a public library setting. Kernels feature in-practice librarians discussing their work so that other in-practice librarians can learn from their experience. And often they're on things that are hot topics and currently much discussed. Kernels are posted to the State Library of Iowa's Continuing Education YouTube channel, and there's a whole playlist of them, so check them all out. And a thing I always love saying, like I'm a YouTuber, if you like them, subscribe for more when we update. They're also cross-posted to Iowa Learns, our learning management system, so that Iowa librarians can watch them for continuing education credit. Just watch the video and complete the evaluation. Check out the description in this video, another YouTuber thing I love to say, or in the attachments area of Iowa Learns for links to resources and handouts. And we will say sometimes during this, oh, we'll link to that, or you might want to check out this website. And anytime we mention that, a link to that will be included. So Rachel is here with us today to discuss book bundles. And so book bundles are a topic that I know a lot of your libraries have kind of started doing since we moved to shutdown and since we moved to COVID. Kind of protocols and kind of limited browsing times in our libraries. But I also know that book bundles are, I feel like they're going to continue, and I feel like they're going to continue to be a thing. And also I feel like there's really a lot of chances to expand our readers' advisory skills and our connection. And so I was really taken with the way Decorah Public Library has done this, and the way that Rachel has used this for a tool for collection development, but also for getting to know patrons better and expanding their reading horizons, which I think is the best of book bundles. And so Rachel is now going to take over for me talking and tell you about how they did it at Decorah. And I'm going to spotlight you as the video now. And I will be listening raptly, but also, asking questions when it comes up. So Rachel, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I think Angie probably had me do this because every time it comes up in conversation with the state library, I've been singing the praises of the process of doing book bundles. I love it. A little background on me, I started to work at Decorah Public Library in November of 2019, which is not very far before everything shut down. So at the beginning of shutdown, I did a lot of videos, I did a lot of story time. I recognized the need for normalcy and for seeing people that you know, but also starting in November 2019, I was not a fixture in my community yet. I'm not the person that like the kids who came to my toddle time developmentally probably don't know who I am anymore, which is totally okay. I don't need to be the star of the show. So for me, when we started doing curbside and I started hearing about other librarians talking about book bundles, it seems like a good practice for me in a number of ways. One is that I have a community that has fairly limited Wi-Fi access. Some folks, we have a rural community. I live 1.5 miles outside of town and I cannot get non-satellite internet at my house. So that's one limiting factor. Two is that I really recognize the need for continued relationship building with patrons. I'm not that person that everyone's known since they were a baby. I'm that person that everyone has known since last year and vaguely remembers from like the 3 months of programming I got to do. So I really wanted to continue to build relationships with my patrons. Another thing is I really want to know what people were interested in reading and increase my readers' advisory skills. So I have books that I'm passionate about and that I love to put in book bundles, but sometimes they don't match up with what patrons want. And it's good for me to know that about specific patrons, but also to know where there are gaps in my knowledge. So I guess a great example of that, I have this sweet postcard. I got it from a tween who I've been doing book bundles for since June. I started doing book bundles for this person and they so nicely and politely told me that they did not want any more novels in verse. They're like, I really don't care for them, which I realized I had been putting like a quarter of the books I'd been putting in had been novels in verse because I love YA and junior fiction novels in verse. And it's been great for me to, over the past God, almost a year, get to know this person through what they read. And I'm sure I sometimes miss the mark. And what's really, really great is that we have mechanisms for feedback to get that reaction. I'm gonna back up because I realize I'm getting into details and I haven't really explained what a book bundle is. And
that was a good way to start, though. That was a good opener. Yeah.
And yeah, so I brought some books for both adults and for junior fiction. For me, a book bundle is a group of books that I select for a patron. So they fill out a form online, which we can link to, and it tells me what genre of books they want. It tells me asks me to say some authors or some books that that person has enjoyed. It also has an anything else you should know section, which is actually by far the most helpful section on the bundle when people fill it out. Sometimes people put things like, I only want a sentence or two per book because of the attention span of my kid. Or sometimes people say, I'm really looking for books about non-white children. Sometimes people have said, what was another? That they loved a specific book, or that they're looking for another specific book, or that they didn't like something from the last bundle. And a lot of times that goes in that last section. So I think that's an important section to include if you're doing book bundles. And then I take their book bundle, or they're what they've given me, and I turn around and give them a collection of usually, I think in our flyers, like 5 books. A lot of times I get insecure and put like 15 books in there because I'm like, what if you don't like this one? I want to give you more options. So yeah, I go about selecting books. I brought a couple examples of what one might look like today. In our community, we have a lot of folks that I've done bundles for who enjoy historical fiction, graphic novels, books about nature. So if I got something like that, I might put something like Song of the Whale. It's an own voices book. It has a deaf protagonist. It's about whales. Really great middle grade reader. Prairie Lotus. I love this one because you get another perspective on kind of the Little House tropes, but you're looking at it from an Asian protagonist. It's an own voices book. Queen of the Sea graphic novel, awesome. Historical fiction graphic novel, which when I start to put them in people's bundles, they ask for more. They're like more historical fiction or nonfiction graphic novels. This is a retelling of Little Women. That's contemporary. This is Catherine's War. It takes place in World War II. So those are 5 books. Again, I usually end up throwing in more because of insecurity, but it hits those notes of graphic novels, historical fiction, some nature. We have like a fairly rural community and a lot of kids who are interested in those things. Probably would also be true in an urban community. And it also sort of shows some of my goals in a book bundle, which is I want to both show the range that the library has. I want to push my own range in Reader's Advisory, and I want to push readers into places that they maybe didn't know that they were excited about. So getting diverse voices in, getting different genres. I didn't do it in this theoretical book bundle, but I love it when I can put in a nonfiction book. I've noticed, especially for some of those reluctant readers, sometimes the same kids that really want to read like Dog Man maybe also want to read like one of those DK really bright, colorful nonfiction books about snakes. And they didn't know it until I throw it in a book bundle. And they're like, oh, my kid loves this because it's interesting, it's engaging. There's not tons of words per page, but they feel like it's got substance. So that's one example. I also brought an adult example, a grown-up example. I primarily do 0 through 18, so I don't pick book bundles for adults as often, but we've gotten a lot of book bundle requests over the last year asking specifically for kind of more diversity in people's reading, and it's something that I really enjoy doing in my personal reading and in my personal work. So these might be something, there's been a couple of book bundles I've helped fill for adults who are like, I want to diversify the voices that I'm reading. So you want to talk about race, classic, very best, like top of all the lists. That might be something I throw in, but then I also want to push people, right? Or like let people know about things they didn't know about before. So this one White Birch, Red Hawthorn. It's a memoir. It's written by an author from Minnesota, so it's regional. The author is Decorah, so it might be really good for somebody who really loves some of those regional connections. Sam Irby, Black author, funny, so great. The first essay in this one is about Instagram influencers. It was one of my favorite COVID company reads, like just a good voice to have in your head. And fun for somebody who's like, I want to diversify my reading, but I don't necessarily want to like read a history of race in America. I just want to laugh and enjoy a good book by a non-white author. Mira Jacobs, Jacob, I loved this book. It's a graphic novel for grown-ups about having conversations with your kid about race. It is so good. And then this one I actually haven't read. I grabbed off the shelf because I loved the cover. It was on topic of what they're looking for. So again, you can see like when I'm picking these, I'm trying to pick a range of things, knowing that not everything is going to gravitate toward every reader, but there might be something in there that does. And also hoping that if a reader really doesn't like something, they're going to tell me in their feedback, and I'm going to be able to keep curating better and better bundles for them. So feedback, I have a form. It's probably hard to read. I can send Angie a PDF.
We can attach that. Yeah, we can attach that.
It says that this is a new program. We'd love to get a better read with an emoji laughing on what books you enjoyed. Please fill out this form, put it in the drop box with your books, and ask what books they liked, what they didn't like, what they want us to know for next time. And then I can keep track of those and keep building people hopefully better bundles, unless I get distracted by something I like and they don't, and they just gets thrown in there. But I really try to cumulatively make them better over time.
And do patrons return those? Or do they return them, or are they just like, whatever?
It's a mix. So like everything, I would say that there are people who give them back to me every time. There are people that I've been doing a book bundle a week for 6 months that I've gotten 2 of these back. There are people who prefer to put it in the anything else you should know section of doing their next bundle. But for me, it's important just to have multiple mechanisms of getting feedback. It's easiest for me to track these when people do it online, but I also have patrons who only want to do this process over the phone. And that's fine because it usually gives me more information about what they're looking for. I got to do a really fun one this week for a grandparent, and they're reading to 2 grandkids, and I'm like, what are your grandkids like? And they're like, well, I'm going to tell you what I like. I like talking about birds at the beginning of every single story time I do with them over Zoom. And it was so fun to pick. They're like, I like ecology. I like nature. I want my grandkids to like it. And I'm like, I can work with that. I can do picture books about birds and nature and ecology. That's kind of my jam. So yeah, I guess the point is that they have multiple ways of reaching me or giving me feedback. And sometimes people don't. Like I had somebody come in and they're like, I asked if they'd heard of the book bundle program. They're like, we did. We got some. My kid wasn't super enthusiastic about it, but we just did discover we liked Fly Guy. And that's great. Like, I don't need everyone to love my program in every book. If they discover one new thing, I think that's a win. And also, I think just having those follow-up conversations in person, figuring out what people liked or didn't like is helpful for me as I get better at my own reader's advisory skills.
And how do you think or know that this has impacted circulation?
So we can tell from numbers, and that it definitely, the numbers increase, right? Like if I'm doing, so far I've been doing 50 to 60 of these a month. I put usually somewhere between 7 and 15 books in each one, average on around 10. So that's like 500 to 600 more books in just the children's section that are circulating and going out. I also think that it shows people some of the things that we have that are new in the library and they like. So even if, and that's harder to quantify, right? But like, even if somebody requests a book bundle for their junior fiction reader once and they don't request another one, but it gets them into a series they love that they didn't know about, then that indirectly influences circulation. And I'm sure that's happened just from seeing repeat customers and seeing what people check out. And
how how does a patron, you have it on the website, you can call them up and have it. How have you promoted it? Do you have something like for whatever the limited browsing is, like what other ways have you gotten word out about? Because patrons are going to be like, book bundle, I've never even heard of that. How do you define and kind of pitch it to them?
Well, the best way, honestly, in our community, which is why things start slowly, right? In our community, word of mouth is the best. So the ways that I've promoted it is via Facebook, via Instagram, on our website. When people call, that's a big one. When folks call and they're looking for something, my easiest and sort of most like something that I can throw together very quickly for people are board book bundles. And we don't do board books via our curbside system because of the way they're organized. They're not alphabetized, they're on the floor so kids can like touch them, grab them, whatever. So, but it doesn't work very well for staff to look through every board book on the floor for a book about a digger that a specific kid wants. And the reality is a lot of times parents aren't looking for super specific books. They're just looking for board books. So sometimes people will call and they'll be like, do you have board books? I don't see them on your system. And I can tell them that we're not doing them via curbside, but I would be so helpful to put together a personalized bundle of them for you. If you just tell me a couple things about your kid and what age they are and what they maybe are interested in. So there's multiple mechanisms on the front end, but what I've discovered has really helped it grow is word of mouth, people telling their friends that they got a book bundle and it worked well. And it's actually been super awesome. I'm part of a Decorah Playgroup Facebook group. And it was really fun to watch parents recommend my program to each other on that. Be like, have you done this? We've discovered great books. They put a lot of energy and effort into it.
And also even an adult could find out that way, like about the service for adults. So that's the other thing too. Like you might have an adult who's doing it for the adult version and then say, hey, do you do this for kids too? Hey, I'm wondering, can you do this for my teenager? So that having it across ages. Like,
yeah.
And
I was just going to say, I cannot overstate how much it's helped me grow in terms of understanding what my community needs. Like, I needed more board books on construction. I needed more books about non-white princesses and princesses with different body types and princesses who like to do science, because kids like to read about princesses and parents like them to have a wide representation of what a princess can look like. I needed more books about basketball. And it's just really, really good. And hunting and fishing, that's another thing. I'll look for a book and I'm like, oh gosh, I only have like 3 and they've already read it and they don't really represent the diversity of what's out there. It really, really helps me with collection development in a way that I really have appreciated a lot.
So also, and again, I think that's a note, building collection. So the idea that like somebody might ask for something in a bundle and you're like, well, I don't have that exact book, but now I see the ways that the collection needs to expand. So I think that other note too, that it's not always about every single book you already have, but it's also understanding ways that you can make the collection better on top of everything else.
Yeah, potty training books. I realized that I only had in my board book 2 potty training books that I didn't love either of them. So my coworkers are like, why do we have all these books about pooping all of a sudden? I'm like, because we needed them. Mm-hmm. I've had 3 patron requests for potty training books, and it's a need. People don't want to necessarily have a huge personal library of books about potty training. They want to be able to get those things from the library.
And so I'm going to say as a question from a library who's thinking about starting this. Does a patron say, I only want one of these, you keep the other 4? Like what language have you put in there to do what I call, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit? For librarians who are worried, like, oh, I can't, like, it'll take too long to personally select, like, what language have you put in there to kind of explain that to patrons?
I don't think it's necessarily on my website, but when I've had conversations with people and when they get the auto-generated email, but I also call or personally email everybody who does a book bundle and let them know or ask them when they want to pick it up. And in that, I try to express any hesitation or insecurity I might have. I try to put it in there so that they know. So for example, I have gotten some book bundle requests for parents who want to talk to their kids about harder topics. And I might sticky note those books. Like this book is about death. Like heads up, if you're doing a story time, you asked for this, but also I want you to know that. Or let's say I have a parent request, not a kid request for junior fiction. And there's some things that might be, I'm not sure what their range of what they're looking for is. I might put that in the email. Like I selected these books. This one might push you a little bit more. It's, you know, your kid's in 4th grade and this book is about the Holocaust, just a heads up. Or not because I think that I should monitor the content they get, but because I feel very insecure that somebody is going to be like, oh, this children's librarian gave me this book that my kid totally wasn't ready for. And I want to try, if I can, to give them a heads up about things that I'm not sure about. Or I might be like, I got some books about princesses for you, but like I didn't have the full range of what I wanted, and you actually inspired an order, and I can put some books on hold for you for when they come in.
So that I love the idea of putting like even a sticky note on each one that takes that, you know, like, this is the funny one, check out nonfiction. We have a lot of great stuff. So I love that idea too, of like, we're missing, so much of it is missing that connection with patrons. Mm-hmm. We're missing that in person. Like you could have that conversation in person. So much of that is we're missing that element of the reader's advisor, or even connecting with a patron, and being able to do that in different ways through the bundle, I think has a lot of flexibility and appeal. And you do make them take all 5. You don't let them like pick through and be like,
our curbside system, actually, they get their bag curbside. So obviously, like anything they want, they could open their bag and put them back in the book drop box if they wanted to, but I'm not really involved in that process. That's for them to determine. And sometimes I will say, like, I wasn't sure exactly what you were going for. I overstuffed your bag. A good example of this is anything where a kid is like learning to read. I'll say, I tried to cater more to your child's interest. I'm not sure exactly what reading level they are in. I gave you 20 books this time so that they could choose the things that were most interested into them. You might want to try co-reading with them if they're not at that level.
And then that encourages the feedback of next time. I was saying, well, you know what really worked and what really didn't. So that's another way of encouraging that feedback loop. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, you mentioned kind of the middle grade a little bit. I'm wondering if you can talk briefly about like experiences you've had with the middle grade, the chapter books and the YA version, because I know a lot of people might feel like, oh, I could do the picture book part, but do you read every single book you put in the bundle? How do you know, like, what experiences, or how would you address that, people who might be feeling that?
Yeah, I'm laughing because I'm like, no. And I'm aware too, I'm so intimidated by the Goodreads of other librarians, because I'll think that I'm doing really great. I'm like, I read 35 books last year. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that person read 120 books.
A lot of them track picture books too. Now you gotta go easy on yourself.
But I use all, I'm turning red because I'm laughing, not because I'm crying. They're similar faces for me. I use all the tools available to me that I can. So I use Goodreads, Amazon, blogs. I use Common Sense Media a lot because I like the way that they group things and give you feedback about topics, and also tell you things about the like representation in the books. I try to use books that I have read as platforms to find other books, and I use books that they've liked as platforms to find other books. So again, I think for me, that's a professional growth opportunity, because again, like there's a lot of people that I'm selecting books for that have really different reading interests than I do. Not everybody is like, my go-to YA canon is I want to read like everything Elizabeth Acevedo has ever done, or anyone adjacent to her, but that's not the interest of the kid who wants hunting and fishing books, like, right? Like, so I think that's been a really fun way to challenge myself and to learn more. I often tell people that I read a lot of books, or a fair amount, you know, not the 100+ Goodreads year librarian, but I read more about books. Like, I'm a person who loves to go on the internet and read book reviews, see what's coming out, see what has already come out, figure out what's in our catalog. That's been really good. Again, a point of growth.
And also I think one of the things, like, and I don't, you can maybe speak to this too, but not feeling like, because you're not just picking one book. Sometimes when they come in, you're like, oh my gosh, they're going to take only one book that I choose. So of having 4, 5, 10, 15 in there relieves the pressure of like, I got to get the one book that's going to be the book that changes their life for the rest of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's huge. And for me too, it's also good to get feedback on that, because I tend to overpick, but I definitely had I have a patron that was like, my kid feels a lot of pressure by all the books you're putting in them. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's not an assignment. Like, I can put less in, but like, this is so that you can choose. Like, if you wanted to put half of them right back in the Dropbox, that's fine. Like, you don't have to read all of these books, but I do want to just give you a smaller selection of the library. It's almost like making a personalized book display is what I think of it for people. I'm not selecting everything they read. I'm giving them an option of things to choose from.
And in the era when we're missing that element of them being able to browse or be in the library as long as they might want, we're kind of supplementing with that. But as a follow-up, do you imagine, or how do you imagine this will continue as things get back more open? Like, is this a thing that you feel will go away, or do you think patrons are going to continue to be interested in this, and staff is going to continue to be interested in this?
I hope people are still interested in it, and I've heard from folks that they are. And I imagine what will happen is some numbers will decrease. So this week we've been open to the public for a little bit, and I went through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week without a book bundle request, which is super weird for me. I'm like, what? I'm used to doing, like, they add up over the weekend. So like 6 of them on a Monday, which picking out 60 books on a Monday takes a chunk of time. But then I got to yesterday and I had 4 of them. So I'm like, oh, I guess people still want them. And I think that's the thing, that demand can somewhat dictate it. And if demand for them goes down, it takes less time. But I love having it as an option for those folks that really just want to grab something and go, or get a little bit more help. These have been really popular with grandparents, I've noticed.
That could even be a promotional opportunity to be like, hey, I've noticed grandparents like this, so we're going to keep it up for grandparents. Like, so seeing where it's really popular, like if you have like elderly women who love reading mysteries and they want to keep doing it, you can be like, great, we're going to go super hard with those and maybe ease up on the kids ones because they're coming into the library more. So kind of watching it along the way.
Yeah. And again, it's like, it just informs me of those gaps. Another one that I've discovered besides like potty training books is I have a lot of folks who want to read, grandparents and parents who want to read aloud to kids that are 6, 7, 8, but they want something that's engaging for them and for the child that doesn't have a lot of hard content. And really, like, once you get into junior fiction, if you're like, I don't want to read about death, like even the boxcar children, like the parents are dead. So boxcar, I always want to say card. I get self-conscious about the way I speak. But I think for me, it's been a really good opportunity to think, okay, what serves this interest? Like Cynthia Ryland is a really good go-to for that crowd, but what else is there? And it's really helped inform my reading. Because again, in my personal reading life, I'm not necessarily reading with that lens.
Mm-hmm. So I always at this point ask what you would say to a librarian who was thinking about doing this or was nervous about doing this, or what would you say to them about thinking, if they were thinking about starting something like this?
I would say do it, because it's such a good way to build relationships with patrons and to grow yourself. And I would say that for me, at least, I have never, if you have insecurities or fears about it, it is okay to somehow communicate those in the way you're doing it. So we put in our media early on that like there's a limit to how many we can do a day. I'm one person that is doing 0 through 18. There might be a slower turnaround, but we're going to try to prioritize them. Or like, if I'm nervous, like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I hit the mark for this kid or for this this adult or whatever, I can put that in my email back to them. I can put, these are the things I picked for these reasons, but I'm not sure if they really hit what you're looking for. Give me feedback. I think vocalizing those things, you don't have to, I don't think we're living in an era of experts. I think we're living in an era of coaches and guides and helpers, and it's a great opportunity to be all of those things.
I love that. And I also want to allude to, we kind of maybe should have mentioned this earlier, but now's a good time to do it as we're kind of wrapping up. You get to set the terms for it. So you can tell patrons, it's going to take a day, it's going to take 48 hours, so it's not the kind of thing where, oh my gosh, you're going to get 15 books overnight. And so I would say as a clarification question, what time frame do you give patrons, and what would you estimate is the time investment in doing this on your part?
Good question. So what we originally said in the paper when we were doing the press release is, the reporter actually asked, she's like, will they be like within a week? And I was like, oh yeah, like absolutely within a week, but not within 24 hours necessarily. So for me as a one-person operation, and I do try to communicate with people, if you do it Friday, you might not get it till Tuesday, because if I'm filling 120 take and make bags first thing Monday morning, which was actually a terrible scheduling mistake on my part, but I've kept it up because people are used to take and makes being Monday morning, then like I might not get to it until Monday afternoon, and then it might go out curbside Tuesday. And usually just communicating that is fine. I think what people don't like is they don't like the uncertainty of not knowing. So I would say if you feel like you can't get to something right away, or if they've stacked up, even just emailing and communicating with those patrons and being like, I can get your book bundle by Wednesday, or I can get your book bundle by this day, is helpful. Again, I think it's okay to be uncertain about timing, especially when you're starting. In terms of time commitment, I have filled them in less than 15 minutes or 10 minutes, and I've filled them in an hour. And the ones that I've filled in an hour are the ones that I've really learned from. Sometimes you get those kids, especially for me, I think I've struggled with some of the older kids, and that's not typical. Like I can name obviously because of like patron privacies, I would not, but I could tell you the ones that took longer because there's been less than 4 of them over the last 6 months, but they've taken a lot of my energy, and that's okay. Like, I think that's absolutely fine because you're growing in your own professional development. You just have to give yourself and the patrons and the people that you're working with the information so that they understand how you're using your time and why certain things are taking longer.
And I would, as the follow-up reminder to people, I would say also think back to the numbers that Rachel said at the beginning of how the circulation bump from that. So you might say to yourself, oh my God, like I'm so busy, I'm so stressed, I can't like invest that time. I think then also balancing, seeing what a difference it can make in circulation. Because I know right now a thing, especially with limited browsing, that some people are facing is like our circulation numbers are going down. The books aren't going as fast as they were when people would come in. And so thinking about it in those terms too, being like, it might take some more time, but we're going to get that circulation payoff. And so that's a balance.
And I think selfishly, sometimes it can make the books that you love and you know other people would love circulate. I joke, I love the book Bibimbap. It's a children's book about making bibimbap. I think it's great. When I came in, it really hadn't circulated very much in the last 2 years. That thing has gone out in so many book bundles because I'm like, it's just so great. It's about food. It rhymes. It's a wonderful read aloud. The first time I read it with kids, we made bibimbap afterwards. So I think it's a great opportunity too, to just let your patrons know about the depth of your collection and let them know some of the great things you know as a library professional working there about the things that are buried treasures in your shelves.
That is the perfect way to wrap this up. I love that as a closing thought. And I think it really brings together a lot of the elements of why you might want to incorporate a book bundles program and some of the real benefits from it. And I do want to note really quickly, because this is the kind of person I am, Song for a Whale by Lynn Kelly. Lynn Kelly is not deaf or hard of hearing. She's an interpreter. So the main character in it is deaf, but Lynn Kelly herself is not deaf and hard of hearing. I had to note that because that's the kind of person I am. But it was a Schneider honor book. So that's
yeah,
cool.
No, totally. I'm glad you noted that. And please, like, Like, again, that's one of the things, I haven't read that one.
Good. It's super good. It's super good. And there's a lot of great stuff in it about interpretation, and it's really good. And I would recommend it, but it's not written by a deaf or hard of hearing person. It's written by an interpreter who has lived in her whole life, but.
Thank you for letting me know. Again, I think it's like, it's such a good opportunity. And I think that's the other thing with all of these. I have found too, with like books and book bundles, it's a great opportunity to also like tell parents and caregivers, like, it's okay not to know. It's okay to have to ask for help. And like, also, I'm going to ask for help as I'm helping you.
And also, I think another thing too, the thing we tell them all the time, it's related, really connected to that, but it's hard to get across. You can read 15 pages of this and stop. Like, so that not only can you not know everything, but you can also not like, and that can be harder to get across in person. But if you make a stack of books, it's easier to get that. Like, you can try 20 pages of this book and be like, I don't like it. You can admit you don't know everything about a book, and it's okay, and then learn more about it. So I think, again, the bundle and the we're trying this out aspect really promotes that in a way even one-on-one conversation cannot. It just cannot do that.
Yeah, so my academic background, I didn't go to library school. I have a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing and Environment from Iowa State. And one of the most helpful things for me during that program was having my professor say, like, as a writer, it's your job to grab them from the second sentence, because why would they keep reading to the second sentence if it's not engaging? And like, that first page should be awesome. And like, every page is an opportunity to lose your reader. So like, you have to keep being awesome. And I think it made me feel like it was okay as a reader also to put things down. Mm-hmm. I think it taught me a lot about, I went through high school and college feeling like it was so important to read canon because like somebody told me it was important. And I think only when I started writing myself did I realize, like, no, the most important thing is to love what you're reading and have it answer a question that your brain doesn't even know it wants to ask yet, and to feel super engaged and like talked to by your author. And that's going to be different for every reader.
And they love, always from us as figures of authority, they love the permission to quit. So I think that's another thing with the book bundles, like even putting a note in that's like, none of these work, let's try it again. So like, you have the permission to quit this at any time. So, and that's, again, a great opportunity that we have to say, try it out, try it, you'll see. Kind of a book tasting. So
yeah.
So Rachel, thank you so much. So one of the things we want to tell everybody who's watching right now is we're going to have links. We're going to have links to Decorah Public Library's online book bundle page so you can explore it. Rachel will send me the feedback form, the printed out feedback form. We'll attach that as well. And I'm also going to link to a couple other libraries' online book bundle request forms, because one of the things we want you to take from this are there are so many ways to do this. There's so many ways to incorporate this at your library. It's not the kind of thing that one library, one place has the exact way, and then there's so many ways to do it. And one of the, again, I asked Rachel for a variety of reasons, but very much what she talked about at the beginning, I wanted you to kind of get the ways that it helped her develop her collection and also develop her reader's advisory skills and talk about the circulation boost. But we are going to link to other libraries that are doing it, as well as all the stuff from Decorah. And Rachel would love to talk to you about it. So you're going to see her contact information on a slide here at the end. You're going to see her contact information another way, and you can always get in touch with me and I'm happy to hook you up, but she would love to talk to you about it. That's another reason she volunteered to do this today. So thank you for watching, and thank you to Rachel for taking your time and effort to be part of this Kernels. If you are watching this on YouTube, check out the links in the description for all of that stuff and for more info. In Iowa Learns, these are usually stored in the attachments area. If you've got a little bit of time, watch another Kernel, subscribe to get updates. And if you're doing something at your library, a program, an initiative, a service, or something else, it could be super topical. We just had one about a library doing a COVID vaccine clinic that you think would make a great Kernel. We want to hear about it. So reach out and tell us all about it. And thank you for joining us today. And thank you, Rachel.